Good morning to you. It is time for Political Breakfast. We are live on WABE this morning. Here today are strategist Tharon Johnson and Brian Robinson to talk about today's state Senate special election runoff in a district that covers parts of North Fulton and Cherokee counties. It's getting national attention. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning. And as you both know, Democratic National Convention Chair Kim Martin came to Georgia over the weekend to campaign for candidate Debra Shigley, who is running to replace Republican Brandon Beach, who resigned to join the Trump administration. Tharon, I'll begin with you. Democrats are really trying to flip Beach's Republican seat in the state Senate. How big a deal is it to have the DNC chair knocking on doors?
It's a huge deal. The fact that Chairman Martin came to Georgia, which he knows is going to be a battleground state, not only in 2025, 2026, but also in 2028. But it shows you that Debra, who is an outstanding woman, has really worked very hard in a district where she should not even have a chance of even putting points on the board. This is remind our listeners, she got roughly 40% of the vote in a crowded race. She's a mom of 5, a wife. Went to Harvard, graduated in 2000 with my wife. Was a lawyer, also a reporter. But what's interesting, Lisa, is that it's getting a lot of national attention from not just national Democrats. A lot of local Democrats are running to help her. But also she's running on a message that's around expanding affordable housing, strengthening public schools, and looking at a way to sort of lower health cost prices, which we know are really high right now. But if she wins today, it is going to be a major shot across the bow for Republicans. Even if she comes close, Lisa, it's still going to be a major shot across the bow because this is a district where a Democrat should not even have a chance. This is a solidly red district where 70% of the people voted for Brandon Beach. So her turnout game has been amazing. People are going to study this race going forward.
Yeah, Brian, it is getting national attention. What are Republicans thinking at this point? Are they a little nervous?
Republicans have actually responded very well to this. I think it was a bit of a wake-up call that Shigley got 40% in the first round of this. She got 40% because, as Tharon said, and I love how he squeezed in there that his wife went to Harvard. That was really well done. She got 40%, and Republicans are like, it should be 30% Democrat and 70% Republican. So her getting 40 certainly caught people's eyeballs. And what happens is in a big crowded field like that, it's really hard to get people tuned into a special election in an off year. This runoff, however, has gotten a lot more attention. The early voting numbers crossed over 16,000. That is a huge early voting number for a standalone special state Senate election. And it far outpaced what happened in the first round. But what happened there, the reason why she finished first in the first round is there were a lot of Republicans who were dividing up the vote. So it was still a 60-40 Republican split. What Democrats are going for here is a narrative win. They're not going to win tonight. Debra Shigley is not going to raise her hand in the victory formation at her party. What's going to happen is Republicans are going to win. And Democrats have got to make a nuanced argument that we cut the margin, that it's not as big of a blowout as it should be in a district drawn for Republicans. I'm glad to see Republicans taking this seriously and fighting back against that narrative. The big numbers turning out in Cherokee County, which is solidly red, give me a little bit of hope that we're gonna avoid getting that narrative win for the Democrats.
Tharon, do you concur that Shigley is making a good showing, but will not win the election?
Of course, Lisa, I got to say she's going to win. I'm the Democrat on the podcast, and I hope she wins. But if she doesn't, which she still could win. Brian cited these early vote numbers that are in the race so far, but we also got to look at the votes in Fulton. Is she doing better in Fulton than expected? Is she overperforming? Is she able to get a lot of disaffected, disenchanted people who don't like the direction of the Republican Party to take her seriously? We also cannot give every single vote of that 60% who voted Republican to the Republican candidate. However, this is a man who actually put $750,000 of his own money in the race. And what's striking me, Lisa, is that the Republicans have been pretty quiet on this. You got a lot of third-party groups on both sides engaging, but there's not a lot of national people coming to support the Republican candidate in this race, whereas the Democrats are utilizing local and national folks to raise awareness. I do agree with B-Rob, no matter what. If she wins, again, it'll be a big strike across the bow. But even if she gets close in a district that is solidly red, yes, it becomes a narrative that Democrats, we don't need to win every single Republican state Senate seat across the state of Georgia, but we need to overperform.
All right. Moving on to the governor's race here in Georgia. Do you think it'll ever escape the shadow of the 2020 election? You've got Brad Raffensperger, who pushed back on President Trump's claims he won Georgia and remained in the Republican Party. You've got former Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, who pushed back but left the Republican Party because of party divide and is now running as a Democrat. Brian, how do you envision a possible debate between those two playing out? A lot of things can be said, right?
Well, if it was a debate between Jeff Duncan and Brad Raffensperger, I think it would be a very civil, high-minded debate between two people who respect each other, two people who were in the trenches together, but found themselves on opposite sides of the political divide over time. I do think this is the last time that you're going to see 2020 playing any sort of a role in a governor's race or any race in Georgia. It's sort of shocking to me that we are 6 years in and still it's so much a part of our consciousness. Now, I don't think anybody on either side is going to spend a lot of time talking about 2020. As Tharon always quotes me as saying, and he's right, I always say, if we're talking about 2020, we're losing. Republicans shouldn't be talking about that. Raffensperger certainly and Carr have many reasons to talk about everything else under the sun because it's still such a divisive issue with the Republican primary base. When Raffensperger got in, I found it really interesting that Burt Jones did a video that had a lot of 2020 thematics in it. And I understand how he wants to paint Carr and Raffensperger as not Trump enough. I get that strategy, but I would do it a different way. I wouldn't be talking about 2020 because the people in the general election won't forget. And that segment of folks doesn't like the 2020 election denial. And the people who've taken that message have lost in general elections over the last few cycles in Georgia.
All right, Tharon, we've got about a minute left. Is it fair to still be talking about 2020 all these years later?
Absolutely, because one, it was a attempt by the Republicans, as B-Rob just mentioned, to talk about how the election was stolen, baseless claims. But it's also a year, Lisa, that Democrats should be proud of. It's a year that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won the state of Georgia, and we went on January 5th of 2021 when we sent our two U.S. senators to Washington, Warnock and Ossoff. So it's a bad thing for Republicans to talk about, good thing for Democrats to talk about as far as building momentum.
All right, Tharon Johnson, Brian Robinson, thank you so much for your perspective. As always, we'll check in again on Thursday. Have a great day.
Go vote.
Go vote.
Amplifying Atlanta, this is listener-funded WABE.